Hello, we are back. Hello, friends, we are back. Long time no see. Yeah, I look a mess if you're watching this on video, and that is because I am. I've lost my mic clip, which is amazing. We love that. I've got notes. I've actually written a script. She's back in all of her glory. But hello, it's Hannah, and welcome back to No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the psych ward. How do you navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one? Yeah. If you're new here, I'm Hannah, and this podcast is about what happens after the psych ward, about trying to build a life, identity, and sense of self when, if you've been to be totally honest, I never expected to be here this long. This is relaunching the podcast, so as you may know, I have come and gone many times, and that is because I pride myself on authenticity and real, and this is going to be very real. As you can see, I'm in my room. It's a mess. I haven't done my makeup because I was like, you know what? I need to get recording, and you know what? I can do my makeup while I'm recording this relaunch episode, because actually in life, my biggest goal is to be authentic and to be myself. And that is what this podcast is about. So let's be real, you know? Maybe one day there'll be a cute background, but at the moment it's just the mess that is my bedroom. So yeah, now you may remember that we were on this podcast originally just the podcast. Then we joined Be the Change Media Network, and some of you may also have listened to Monday Mornings with Millie, and it was an amazing and beautifully chaotic experience. And me and Millie are still doing a podcast together under Be the Change Media Network called You Don't Need a Hamster, You Need a Therapist. Millie has taken the reins of that one as Hannah needed to relinquish control. She likes to be in control. It's very hard. But yeah, Millie has now got that. But the thing with No Longer Legally Detained was that it was just getting a bit messy with all the different kind of branding and everything that was going on. So we decided to split off. So yeah, you can still catch us on Be the Change Media Network under you don't need a hamster, you need a therapist. And yeah, whereas here is going to be just No Longer Legally Detained, and yeah, exciting. So yeah, I've got notes because otherwise I feel like I'm just going to go off on an absolute tangent. But this podcast is still No Longer Legally Detained, and is definitely still a big nod to that very real part of my story, but it is no longer part of Be the Change Media Network. But Monday Mornings with Millie is no more, but Millie is still very much with Be the Change Media Network and hosts her own amazing show. And I do co-star on that most weeks, so please do go check it out. That show drops on a Monday, and you should absolutely go over and have a listen. It's very chaotic, and you can follow that Instagram, and I can't remember exactly the letters that it is, but you know, I'll put it somewhere so you can find it if you want. But this podcast is no longer legally detained. It's completely my space. New episodes are going to drop every Sunday. It's going to be visual and audio. I know, crazy times. And it's going to be raw, honest, a bit messy, a bit hopeful, a lot autistic, and deeply, deeply human. Fingers crossed. Now, the problem is that I can't put this mic anywhere because there's not a clip. Where's the clip gone? You have to attach it to this frog. Is this going to work? Right. For those who are not watching, I've just attached the mic to my frog makeup headband. I have no idea if this is going to work. Maybe I need to speak up louder. Who knows? I apologize if the audio is really bad. Big apologies to myself if I have to re-record this, because that's going to be actually devastating. But anyway, so this first episode, this relaunch episode of the pod, I decided that I'm going to talk about something that I did last month. So we are now at the beginning of May, and last month was April. Wow, I know. We're working in a school really did it for me. And I now know my months of the year. And it was Autism Acceptance Month, which, if you follow my Instagram, which I hope you do, I spoke all about, shared lots of like autism prompts, etc. And I was very lucky that part of my role on the youth board for the Mighty Creatives, I have been able to work with B, the social media marketing communications manager, on making the social media more youth-led and more authentic. And as part of that, I really wanted to share some journal prompts, because journaling has been something that I'm so passionate about, the power of journaling. And my goal in life, I have lots of goals. One of them is I would absolutely love to set up a there's a few different things. I'd love to set up a bullet journaling group. I feel like as adults, we're so kind of having to be productive that we never allow ourselves the time to do things that like aren't. No, the mic just fell. Yeah. Okay, so that mic plan did not work. Well, we'll stop doing the makeup for now. Although I'm not really gonna do that much makeup, I'll be honest, I've like not been wearing as much makeup recently. Because, you know, au naturel. Oh my gosh, my hair. If you're watching this on visual, I do apologise. Ow, completely forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so completely lost my train of thought, but I think I was talking about Autism Acceptance Month. So last month was Autism Acceptance Month, and as part of my role at TMC on the youth board, I got the opportunity to work with B, who is the social media manager, marketing kind of person, and yeah, journaling. That's what I was talking about. So journaling is something that I've like absolutely like love, and I think there's so much power within journaling. And wait, no, I remember. Got my hair. So I think as adults we really like struggle to prioritize like ourselves and like having things that we want to do. So I would love to set up a bullet journaling group, you know, like because I think that just having that space like where, you know, kind of when you go somewhere to do something, it like gives you that responsibility of like of doing it, which like I feel like allows us to actually like do it. Anyway, that's really badly explained, but journaling. I also am a really big passionate believer in the power of peer support and using journaling as a tool in like discovering yourself and like discovering your identity, especially when it comes to like neurodivergence, late diagnosed, mental health, like just discovering all of these things and like what things like mean to you. I've struggled for a long time, and I think for even longer time, like even after I was diagnosed, it was kind of like, oh, I felt like I still had to fit into a box, like still had to fit into like the autistic box now. And for ages, like I was so kind of like confused by the fact that I didn't fit into like the neurotypical box, but I also didn't feel like I fit into the autistic box. And that was really hard because I didn't like feel like I belonged, and it still felt like kind of really hard that I kind of didn't fit anywhere. Right, my hair's now done, people, so you'll be pleased to know that I can focus. It's really dodgy. The whole of this looks really dodgy, but we're just going to focus on what we're doing now. So as part of Autism Acceptance Month, I did a daily prompt over on TMC's Instagram, and I actually set up my own journal, which if you're watching visually, this is mine. I've not finished it. Obviously, I've actually barely started it because life just takes over. But it was really fun, and it's something that like in the future I would love to work with young people, like have set up kind of a peer support group and use journaling as like a way to kind of people to go on their own journey of self-discovery and like go on their own journey of like discovering what different things mean to them. And I think it's really important that young people and any people actually realize that like autism or whatever it is, like any kind of neurodivergence is, although there absolutely are like the diagnostic criteria and that's like, you know, important for that side of it, actually like once you've got that, or if you're self-diagnosed or whatever, like removing that as like not as part of the conversation. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist or anything. I'm a performing arts student, so like let's be real, let's keep within our realm of like qualifications. But I think when you've got a label, like it's about discovering what that label means to you. So yeah, so over on the TMC's Instagram, I shared 30 different prompts, one every day, about kind of all different, like looking at all different kinds of like areas of being autistic. And yeah, it was really fun. So for this first episode, I wanted to reflect on some of the things that I shared as part of Autism Acceptance Month. And so for this first episode back, I wanted to reflect on some of the things that I shared throughout April for Autism Acceptance Month. And the first being my series of 30 daily journal prompts that I created and posted over on the TMC's Instagram. And these prompts helped me explore what it means to be autistic, alive and healing and tired and trying to build something out of life I didn't expect to even be living. And I think it's really important, like when you've been sectioned, when you've been locked away, and a lot of the parts of you that like were kind of labeled as like dangerous and unwell and all of those things, then you discover like, okay, maybe they're like actually part of my identity and can cause like a little bit of like a kind of internal crisis of like, who am I? What is all of this? And I'll be honest, coming out of 5 years in hospital, I didn't come out with a neat, tidy 5-year plan. And it actually I came up with a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, a lot of like so many kind of thoughts and feelings that I just didn't necessarily understand. And like, who am I when I'm not in crisis? Who is this person? Like, what does recovery even mean? And how do you adult when you never really prepared to survive adolescence? And for me, journaling was the closest thing to an answer to that. And I believe in journaling in so many different ways. I love bullet journaling, junk journaling, art journaling, well-being journaling. There's so many different ways of doing it. And I think the best thing about journaling is that you can take it in your own way. It doesn't have to be this like very neat prescribed like thing that you see on Instagram. Like journaling, you really can take it however you want to take it. So in April, I created 30 prompts as kind of a bit like a self-guided reflection space, a chance to explore identity, sensory needs, routines, masking burnout, and everything in between. And I really hope that some people joined in. It would be amazing to see. If anyone did join in, please do send me or tag me in your photos. It would be amazing to see. And I think that I learned a lot making these prompts. I think like for me, like I'm still on like day 4, day 5. And obviously like with someone with a massive executive dysfunctioning kind of brain, and like these things aren't going to be easy. And like actually as I went through, I realized that like for me some of the prompts were like too broad and too big, too confusing. But I think that like that's the joy of it, is that I then kind of tailored it as I went through, but also I think that like they are so up for interpretation of how you want to take them, and you don't have to take all of them. You can just do one of them. You can do none of them. You can do all of them. And I think it's something that I definitely want to pursue and refine further. But I wanted to share some of my highlights of the prompts that I did. And if you would love, if you would, I would love if you would like to check them out. I will have a blog up on my website, but also there will hopefully be a blog up over on TMC's website as well soon. The highlight on TMC's Instagram is still there if you want to like click through and see all the prompts that and go back to them. But probably the first prompt that I had was the about me / letter to your younger self. And I thought the reason I wanted to do both was because I feel like they could be taken kind of as like depending how you wanted to start. So I did an about me page. I can show the people who are watching if you want to have a little sneaky peek. If not, go over onto my Instagram. So like yeah, it was really fun to just kind of work out like who am I. But also I wanted a more kind of deep like letter to your younger self. I think that like something that I've been noticing quite a lot recently is reflecting on how far I've come in my own journey. And I think that like it's funny because like I could say that I've come really far, but actually like sitting back and actually thinking about the younger me and the things that I went through, and actually realizing that like while life's still so tricky, I really have come so far. And it's so cringy and cliche. And like actually though, reflecting for me on like who I was, where I was, has helped me like be able to use my experiences and my story to help other people. And I think that's something that like is really important to me. So yeah, some of the prompts were like super introspective, like a letter to my younger self, or what does acceptance look like? While others were just more joy, like special interest dump, like what autistic person is not absolutely buzzed by the thought of being able to just do a whole like spread on their special interest. You know, and I think also like really wanted to put in one of those like toolkit ones. I think that's something that like I'm really passionate about. I'm gonna say this like loads, and I'll get back into my podcasting voice. Like I'm just a bit all over the place at the moment, but like I feel like when you're under services for like your mental health or whatever, those kind of like I do massively believe prevention is better than cure, and like having the tools and the toolkit, and I believe like having a journal and like using it in a really specific way can be a way to kind of create your own toolkit that you can take out afterwards. And I do believe that like doing that by yourself is really hard, especially when you're young, when you don't really like know yourself, and doing that in a really clinical way can sometimes kind of deflect actually from your ability to like really see yourself. And so that's kind of why I also wanted a lot of like toolkit and like kind of a fun way of like doing some of that maybe more kind of personal work on like what does masking look like, or what do I do when I'm burnt out, what's my crisis communication plan, like how can I, while I'm in a better mental space, plan to make sure that the what I really want is able to be seen when I'm maybe not able to communicate that like in a time of crisis, or like when I'm burnt out and things. So yeah, I've got my script because with this podcast, which I never used to really like do that, but I really want to like try and stick more to kind of what I'm doing, so I don't just like go off on a complete tangent. And I ended my phone's not on silent. Well done, Hannah. But yeah, I kind of ended my prompts with the reasons I love being autistic. And I think that my journey with like accepting my autistic identity has been one that has been really wild and really up and down, and still to this day is all over the place. And I think that like it's really hard when you've got the stereotypes and the misconceptions around like being autistic. Also, I think with the intersection in that like I personally have, and so many we all have, like the way the person we are today has so many factors that lead into it, which is why everybody's so unique. I'm gonna sneeze. Welcome to allergy season. The person I am today has been created by so many different factors, and I think for a long time I tried, from no fault of my own, like I think a lot of us do this, is like when I was struggling I would say, oh, I'm autistic. And by me saying that, I was actually like kind of perpetuating the narrative of like what autism is, and actually my experience isn't just autism. Like I view, like why I say like I am autistic is because I view it as a neurotype. I view it as a way that like my brain is, just the way my brain is like being created is like an autistic brain. It's also an ADHD brain, and also due to like having childhood trauma, quite a significant amount of trauma, my brain has also been shaped by that as well. It's also been shaped by the people I've been around. It's been shaped by the experiences I've had. And all of those things have shaped how I now view and interpret the world. And while part of that, and a big part of that is being autistic, it's also a big part of that is being ADHD. Also a big part of that is my PDA profile of autism, which is like pathological demand avoidance or pervasive drive for autonomy. It has been massively shaped by my trauma, and we know that trauma like is actually like physically can changes the brain, but it's also been shaped by like just the everyday experiences that I've had, like the people I've grown up with, the people that I meet. So it's such a complex like journey. It's something that like I think the human brain is so fascinating. Like I really am like a bit of like a nerd when it comes to like this kind of thing. I find like social science, psychology, like all of that so interesting, philosophy. And actually recently I listened to an audiobook, and The Courage to Be Disliked. And when I first started listening to it, I'll be honest, I was like, this is some interesting perspectives. It's all about Adlerian psychology. But I will be honest, did change. Like it changed my brain chemistry, like not to be cliche and like really cringy, but it really did. And actually like for me, learning has been something that like actually in my discovery of like being autistic and also like my mental health recovery that I really love. Like I hated school. I wanted to love learning. I wanted to be academic. Although I did what others say is relatively well at GCSE, I didn't enjoy any of it. I really hated it, and that's for like so many reasons. But what I realized was that actually, and like I would still like for a very long time still say that I didn't like learning. Like I started college every single September for 5 years. The 5 years that I was in and out of inpatient. Sometimes I would make it to the first day of college. Sometimes I would be sectioned before the first day of college. Sometimes I would do a week and then drop out. It was, and I really wanted to love that learning process, but I really didn't. I really hated the whole thing. And I would say like, and what I realized is actually like, I do love learning, and I'm actually learning all of the time. But learning from school has taught us that learning is very much a one-dimensional thing, and actually learning's in all different kind of things. And no, I like academia and like school academia isn't the only way of learning. And actually, like I now kind of have devoted like my whole life to like creativity, social change, justice, inclusion, neurodivergence, mental health, mental illness, mental fitness, like learning all of these things. And actually like that is all learning. And I'm obsessed and I do it all the time. And like I'll literally be scrolling my phone, like looking at all of those things, like, and I really find it so fascinating. And actually that was like my realization that learning isn't a one size fits all approach, and actually like it's about kind of finding your space. And like obviously growing up through school, like there are certain things we have to do, and I think that's why things have been so much better since I have been able to like obviously leave school and like focus on the things I want to focus on. And I think obviously absolutely there is such a need for us to get certain things in life, because without them, like, you don't have the freedom to be able to kind of go off and like, so yeah, being able to get your maths and English. Obviously I do think personally that we need to change the whole of our education system. It's the systemic change, but we won't get into that right now. Let's not get political day one. But yeah, I think that to anyone listening to this who's like really struggling, hating school, feeling like maybe they can't learn or whatever, you just don't learn in this ridiculously binary one size fits all approach. And unfortunately, in lots of ways at the moment, is there a different way? If there is, go for it. But if not, and you can hold on to the fact that it will get better. And I think that like it is in some ways, like there are these different kind of alternative provisions, and that's something that I'm gonna like I will talk about later on. Like this is actually meant to be about journal prompts, but yeah, it's really tricky, but I do love learning, and I kind of have really like found my niche in my area, I guess my special interest of what I like really enjoy, and journaling is so one of them. And so that is something that I am going to be talking about more. I think maybe I should do like a journal prompt every day on this. Every week on this podcast. I would love to know what people want to see on this podcast. I mean, I obviously took a break for a while there, and you can still check out all of the old episodes are still all up on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music. And hopefully this is going to be going out on all three of those platforms plus YouTube. Wish me luck. If I can work out how to do that, I shall let you know. But what was I going to say? Yes, I would love to know what kind of I was in a massive procrastination, like, I think like very much ADHD has like taken over, but I got quite a few really lovely comments of people being like, oh my god, I love your podcast, and it really did spur me on to come back. And I would love to know what people want to see, what people want to hear about. Yeah, I'd love you to go over and follow my Instagram, which is Legally Detained. Do check out my blog as well, which is www.legallydetained.co.uk, and also follow the podcast's Instagram, and also subscribe to the YouTube if you want to get the notifications when I repost, when I do a new episode. Follow, subscribe, like, all of those things really help. The more reach and the more interactions, the more engagement means the further this message is pushed, the further more people who get to experience the joy that is like rediscovering yourself, and also like the more kind of people that I get to network and meet with, and the bigger the opportunities that could happen with this podcast, which will be amazing. So yeah, please do check out all of those things, and yeah, do let me know kind of what kind of vibes you want going on here. And yeah, really, like, I'm going to end today's episode with, I think, some gratitude, because I've started therapy again. That's a whole nother story. But we were looking at gratitude, and I've got a gratitude jar actually, and I really want to like be focusing on my like gratitude, and also like taking those moments. And it's really hard because I find it really jarring. I find it so jarring when people are like, think of the positives, like, oh my god, don't even get me started, like, don't get me started. But I do think it's important that we like look at the positives and the negatives of life. And I know that like on the Comfort Zone podcast with JC and Ro, they do like their weekly wins and weekly wobbles. And I think that like it is very real to be able to like talk about the good and the bad. So maybe we'll have Hannah's weekly wins and weekly wobbles. This week, a wobble I think has probably been just, there's a lot going on. Like obviously certain things are not my story to tell, but I think like I suppose actually the biggest wobble probably actually this past week has been going back to uni, and just really struggling with group work. And I think that like group work is something that I'm going to have to do a whole episode on, because oh my goodness, it's so complicated and so hard, and I can't explain to people why I find it so hard. But the overstimulation of like being in a room full of 30 people, also like the hierarchy and like lack of control in relation to like complex PTSD and like PDA and all of those things, I find it like just so ridiculously like, sorry, we'll go to the sneeze again. I find it like on an intellectual level, like I go in, I'm like, I'm gonna do it, I can do it, like, and I can facilitate a room full of people. Like this afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon, I work with an amazing kind of organization, and we're running workshops for like neurodivergent autistic young people, and I absolutely like love that. But when I'm the participant, I find it really hard. I've actually done a blog all about this. It's on up on my website, called Defiant or Difficult. No, difficult or divergent. I can't even remember. Can you see? It's really going well. But so I think that has been my wobble of like that frustration I have that I really struggle in those group settings and kind of not being able to articulate why, and like also maybe not necessarily having people understand and kind of just telling me to keep going, and like it will change, and it's like that thing of like, no, it's not going to without something changing like within it, you know what I mean? Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And like, yeah, so I think that's been kind of my wobble. But my win of this week, I think, has been just the realization of kind of grateful and lucky I am to be in the position that I'm in. And as much as like things have been so hard and like, you know, in the position that I'm in, like there's so much like difficulty and challenge, and I don't want to like invalidate and gaslight myself, which I had an appointment with mental health services this week, and they were like, it was the opposite of what I used to have. They were literally like, you're kind of like not being very kind to yourself because you're like being really invalidating. And I was like, that's a whole episode probably in itself. But I think as much as like I do need to maybe allow myself to feel the feels, I also am so grateful for the people I have in my life. And as much as like I still am chronically and overwhelmingly lonely, there have been moments this week where like I felt really loved and really held, and that's kind of beautiful. So yeah, that's this first episode. That's this first relaunch episode. Let me have a look on my notes to see if there's anything else I need to say. Yes. So for the full, gosh, I literally can't speak. So for the full list of prompts, go on my blog or on the TMC's Instagram. Take a look. Use them at your own pace. There is no pressure. Just options. Have a look. No right or wrong. You know, it's not school. And if you want more weekly reflections, I will be here every Sunday talking about life after the psych ward, about neurodivergence, what recovery looks like. And it's not about being inspirational. It's just about being honest, real, and kind of, I'm obsessed with podcasts at the moment. Like, I really love a podcast that I can just listen to. And I really hope that, like, when I learn to be able to speak, like, slightly more, less chaotically, I really hope that this is a podcast that you can just put on and, you know, as you're getting ready. Yeah. So don't forget to check out You Don't Need a Hamster, You Need a Therapist on Mondays, hosted by Millie, featuring me most weeks, although I don't think I'm going to be on the one tomorrow because I think she asked me to send her something and I don't know what that was, and I don't know whether she's recorded it or not, so awkward. But that was over on Be the Change Media Network. If you want to, obviously you do, obviously, new episodes will be out on here on No Longer Legally Detained every Sunday. And you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Legally Detained. Follow the podcast at NLLD the podcast. And if this episode meant something to you, please do share it with people. Message me, leave a review, or just keep surviving in your own beautiful and stubborn way. Thank you for being here. Thank you for still being here. And remember, survival is a radical act. I will see you next Sunday. Goodbye.